Hi guys, welcome back to the Social Tune, and today we are going to be taking a look at the latest self-titled album by Jason Eady.
And that's why I left Atlanta. I drove away in a early morning haze. Yes, that's why I left Atlanta. Me and Georgia have seen our better days.
You know, whenever people say that country music is dead, there's a number of projects that I like to point them towards. Obviously, you have Southern Family and Casey Musgraves' output, but you also have Sturgill Simpson, Chris Stapleton, Jason Isbell, and of course, you have Jason Eady, who released his masterpiece Daylight and Dark back in 2014, the title track of which remains one of my favorite country songs of all time. And honestly, I'm surprised that he doesn't get included more often when it comes to conversations about great country music. Of course, you have channels like Spectrum Pulse fawning all over him, but honestly, more people should. Because his talent for songwriting and straightforward yet still damn incredible compositions is pretty damn impressive. So when I heard that this guy was going to be releasing a new album this year, I went in with high hopes that it would be one of the best albums of the year. And no surprise, it is. And really, I'm kind of at a loss here. It's so organic, so fantastically written, and so tight at only 10 tracks long that there really is no room for error and very few are made. Now with that said, I wouldn't say that it's quite as incredible as his last album, but that's more due to my own personal tastes, because it's still a fantastic record that I love more and more with each re-listen. So let's kick things off with the defiantly organic production.
I've got a second chance, I'm gonna make it count. Make my way out west, maybe head down south. Live a life of a pardoned man, believing in things I don't understand.
Now I've said before that I'm a big fan of organic country music, and here Jason Eady's production is about as organic as you can get. Seriously, there's not even an electric guitar on this album, and yet at the same time, it's not entirely stripped back either, as a lot of these songs have fun, fleshed out melodies that really do stick with you. From the banjo and the mandolin blending with an acoustic guitar on Drive, to the guitar and faint string touches on 40 Years, to the fiddle, harmonica and guitar on Black Jesus. And on that song and so many of the others here, you get short instrumental moments, particularly from the fiddle, that would feel a little overindulgent if they weren't all so gorgeous and sharp, never prolonged. Then you have the guitar and pedal steel on No Genie in This Bottle that sounds incredibly gorgeous. Or the fiddles and the banjo on Rain. Or the incredibly touching strings and pedal steel on the simultaneously heartwarming and heartbreaking Not Too Loud. Or take the rollicking drums and guitars on Waiting to Shine and Why I Left Atlanta. Or the heartbreaking minimalism of the mandolin on Where I've Been. All of these songs just sound phenomenal, with gorgeous melodies ranging from melancholic to triumphant to contemplative. And sure, you could argue that it doesn't really switch things up much instrumentally, but the melodies are distinct and beautiful enough that none of it blends together. And the clear standout, at least for me, is the lead-off single, Barabbas. From the point of view of the man who was released instead of Jesus, faced with a newfound faith and hope after being saved from a fate he'd resigned himself to. It's such a simple yet somehow incredibly touching and gorgeous track that I couldn't help but love it, especially with the great low-key guitar and the flourishes of pedal steel. And boy does Jason Eady sound incredible over all of this.
Words are like diamonds, the best ones are the hardest to find. Buried in the bottom of a coal, just waiting to shine.
Now one of the main themes of this album is middle age, which Jason Eady has now reached at the age of 40. and boy does he sound phenomenal for it. His voice carries a wary timbre that shows that he's lived, but he doesn't sound old as much as experienced and ready for anything that life throws his way. Hell, on 40 years, he's not singing so much as he is reciting the lessons that he's learned over the course of his life. Or on Drive, where he sounds ready to keep moving forward no matter what, steadily facing the obstacles that cross his path rather than avoid them. And with his fantastic storytelling and songwriting, he occasionally honestly reminds me of the great Johnny Cash himself, especially on songs like Black Jesus and Why I Left Atlanta. But he also has his more emotional moments, like the heartbreaking song Not Too Loud about his daughter going off to college. And boy can you hear the mixed emotions in his voice, it's so powerful. Or on Barabbas, where you can hear the utter relief and thankfulness, but simultaneously hear the guilt bleeding through on every single word. And boy do those words have an impact.
There ain't no genie in this bottle, and I've been looking with every pore. As I get closer to the bottom, I find it just as empty as the one before.
Now, compared to Daylight and Dark, this album is from the point of view of an older Jason Eady, one who has already made the mistakes that were made on that album, and is looking back at them with a fair amount of regret. And the instrumentation is more stripped back so that you can fully focus on his words, which really do cut deep on some of these songs. And while he may be determined to move forward on Drive, a lot of these songs really are tinged with melancholy. Like take No Genie in This Bottle, where he's wishing for a genie to come to him so that he can go back and right his wrongs. And what's even more cutting is that this could be a very clear metaphor for alcoholism. Drinking through every bottle in order to fix the problems of the past, only for every single bottle to be as empty as the last. Pretty damn potent, and then you have the added detail that, unlike Aladdin, he would free the genie after just one wish, which is just proof of how damn likable this guy is. The only song that I wasn't really wild about was Rain. Definitely not a bad song, but it didn't feel particularly transcendent either, certainly not on the level of some of the other songs here. By contrast, take the utterly heartbreaking Where I've Been, a song that first appeared on his collaboration album with his wife, Courtney Patton, last December. And boy, this must be a tough one to sing opposite your spouse, as it shows a wife cheating on her husband because the spark has gone out between them. And yet, deep down, she does still love him, and if he's willing to make that effort, she'll come back to him in a heartbeat. But unfortunately, you get the feeling that that's not going to happen, and to add fuel to the flames, Courtney Patton actually joins him on the chorus, and boy does it cut deep.
Now it's driving around with friends and hanging out, college applications and life. And I smile and I'm proud, and I cry, but not too loud.
Now luckily, this album does have its more upbeat moments, like Waiting to Shine, which may portray a singer who's waiting for his moment to shine, but it does show his love for his songwriting craft, as well as the effort that he puts into it, with each word being like a carefully selected and refined diamond. Or take Black Jesus, about an old friend that he used to know back in his construction days, who despite being a black blues singer was incredibly similar to him, as they both know that they'll meet again one day, probably in heaven. And speaking of heaven, a lot of this album contains religious undertones. Hell, just take a look at Barabbas, which may as well be a metaphor for Jason Eady himself, as Jesus died for his sins too, and while he may feel guilty for it, especially considering that he too had resigned himself to his fate, that does not mean that he's going to waste the second chance he's been given. The entire album really is a mature reflection of life from the halfway point, and nowhere is that more stark than on Not Too Loud, where while he's proud of his little girl, he's also desperately sad to see her go, looking back on all the wonderful times they've spent together, and it really is a touching song. It'll probably leave most parents in tears. So yeah, this album is fantastic. I shouldn't be surprised, this is Jason Eady after all, but damn is it excellent. It honestly came much closer to Daylight and Dark than I would have predicted. And you guys all need to go and check out this album. It's on YouTube in its entirety, just go listen to it, because this guy is way too talented to pass you by. And in the spirit of that, strong 9 out of 10. Great job, Jason Eady, you definitely earned it. So thank you guys for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed. If there are any other albums coming out in the next month or so, please post them in the comments or tweet them at me at @thesocialtune, link in the description. Please subscribe so you don't miss a thing. And until the next time, I'm Finn, and this is The Social Tune, signing off.